las palabras de Dios, llorando por ti. Es con amor, ay, para ya vivir junto a ti, me enamoré allá de ti. Ya sin tus besos yo no puedo vivir recordado. Ay, para ya vivir junto a ti, me enamoré allá de ti. Ya sin tus besos yo no puedo vivir recordado. Yo quisiera para atender un amor y saber que me quería. Ya tormentalo las palabras de Dios, llorando por ti. Es con amor, ay, para ya vivir junto a ti, me enamoré allá de ti. Ya sin tus besos yo no puedo vivir recordado. Ay, para ya vivir junto a ti, me enamoré allá de ti. Ya sin tus besos yo no puedo vivir recordado. Ay, lo, la, lo, la, lo, la, lo, la.
hacen la guerra, para aquellos que viven pecando, para aquellos que nos maltratan, para aquellos que nos contagian. De amor, que tan mal me porté, mi corazón, que me tiene tanto rencor y me ves muriendo por culpa de tu amor. Medicina de amor quiero de ti, porque tú eres la mujer que me puede curar mi cáncer de amor. Otro año pasó, muriendo voy, no lo olvides mi corazón. precisamente para una mujer que ha acabado con mi alma, con mi vida. A esa yo le llamo mujer cobarde y traicionera, que no sabe valorar la vida del hombre y quiere terminar de esa manera.
Our program will resume in 5 minutes. We ask that you silence your mobile devices at this time. Our program will resume in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Cuando escucho esta canción, mi corazón quiere cantar así.
It's Mr. 305 checking in for the remix. You know they had that 75 Street Brazil. Well, this year's gonna be called Calle Ocho. Que hola gata, que hola omega. And this how we gonna do it. Dale! 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I know you want me. You know I want ya. I know you want me. You know I want ya. I know you want me. You know I want ya. I know you want me. You know I want ya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Rumba, sí. Ella quiere su rumba. ¿Cómo? Rumba, sí. Ella quiere su rumba. ¿Cómo? Si es verdad que tú eres guapa, yo te voy a poner a gozar. Tú tienes la boca grande, dale, ponte a jugar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stick to the top, on my way to the top. A pit got it locked from goose to the lock. So R.I.P. a big in Parker that he's not, but damn he's hot. Label flop, but Pit won't stop. Got her in the cockpit playing with bits. Now watch me make a movie like Albert Hitchcock. Enjoy me. You know I want ya. I know you want me. You know I want ya. I know you want me. You know I want ya. I know you want me. You know I want ya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Rumba, sí. Ella quiere su rumba. ¿Cómo? Rumba, sí. Ella quiere su rumba. ¿Cómo? Si es verdad que tú eres guapa, yo te voy a poner a gozar. Tú tienes la boca grande, dale, ponte a jugar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mommy got an ass like a donkey with a monkey, look like King Kong. Welcome to the crib, 305, that's what it is with the women down here. All the they don't play games, they off the chain, and they love to do everything and anything. And they love to get it in, get it on all night long. I know you want me, you know I want ya. I know you want me, you know I want ya. I know you want me, you know I want ya. I know you want me, you know I want ya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Rumba, sí, ella quiere su rumba. ¿Cómo? Rumba, sí, ella quiere su rumba. ¿Cómo? Si es verdad que tú eres guapa, yo te voy a poner a gozar. Tú tienes la boca grande, dale, ponte a jugar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Baby, you can get it if you with it, we can play. Baby, I got cribs, I got condos, we can stay.
Esta es nuestra historia, donde cada día cuidamos aquello que nos une, donde abrazamos lo que somos y de dónde venimos. Una historia donde celebramos nuestros logros y donde al ganar uno, ganamos todos. Construyamos el futuro juntos.
Please welcome back to the stage ACED's President and CEO, Sid Wilson.
Ya tú sabes, para toda la gente que movieron la cadera, aquí está otra cosita caliente, mucha sabrosura. Proyecto 1 otra vez con mi gente de Real to Real. Rega.
First of all, buenas tardes. So, welcome back. By the way, who's familiar with that music song that just came out? Well, I just came out that song. Remember that song, Latinos by Proyecto Uno? It's a little bit of what I consider to be some of the fun side of it is that's my brother. So, yeah. So, very, very proud of him. Multi-platinum, Latin Grammy, all of that. He's on tour. I think he's in Colombia right now. So for anyone that's from Colombia right now, he's doing that. So it's great. But very proud of his accomplishments. So it's good to come out to his music. All right. Yeah. So I'm really excited about this topic about strategic board service because this is something that doesn't often get taught when we're in school. We're not told about board service, sometimes even within our employers. They may tell you to join a board, but the conversation doesn't always happen about what kind of board How do you align the choice of board service? And how does it benefit you in your current role at your companies? First, before I begin, I want to get a show of hands. How many of you are currently serving on a non-for-profit board right now? So that's not many. As I look around this room, so I think that this session is going to benefit you because as you're thinking about your upward trajectory up the corporate ladder, you're going to want to start thinking about your external credibility outside of your company, which is going to eventually help you not only to be prepared for these great board opportunities, but also how it actually benefits you internally at your companies. And so if you've never seen a presentation like what I'm about to share with you, my hope is that this will help you think about your choice of serving on a board and also why. So let's start with something that is just to put some clarification: qualifications versus sponsorship versus credibility. Because sometimes we hear that being on a board is about your qualifications. The answer is it's not. It's your qualifications that get you a job or get you a promotion or anything that's skill set based. That's qualification. It's your sponsorship that gets you into the C-suite to become a future, whether it's a Jose Ramon Gonzalez or many other high-ranking senior positions, Fabiola and so many others that are at such high-level positions. So it's your sponsorship that gets you into the C-suite, but it's your connections and your credibility that gets you a board seat. Now, I'll be focusing mostly on non-for-profit boards, but it's good to know that if you plan strategically on how you're going to think about your strategy for nonprofit board service, over time, that may help position you for a potential board seat. Now, so this session is going to really help you think about this strategy. A little bit of just to sort of qualify my background in this area is that I serve on a lot of boards that many of you are familiar with. I'm on the board of directors of Junior Achievement USA. If you've ever heard of Junior Achievement, an amazing organization. Some of you may be involved with Junior Achievement in your cities. I'm on the national board of Junior Achievement USA. I'm on the board of directors of the Latino Justice, which is one of the largest Latino legal defense funds in the whole country. I just turned off only a week ago from the official board of directors of the USA Expo 2027 board of directors, who was charged by the US State Department to bid for the World's Fair, the World Expo, to bring it here in 2027. Unfortunately, we lost to Serbia. So that means that board just got sunsetted, so we'll see if they ask me to come on that board again in 2029. And I'm on the board, I served on the board of the Friends of the American Latino Museum. Many of you know that we're working to build a future Smithsonian American Museum on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Emilia Stefan and even Longoria, among others who are on my board there. And I'm currently actually on President Biden's Commission on Advancing Educational Excellence and Equity and Economic Opportunity for Hispanics. And then on top of that, I served on corporate boards as well, on multiple ones. So I want to share all this because after serving on a lot of these kinds of boards, you start noticing these patterns. And so we want to make sure that you get a good understanding of what these keys are. But remember this part: qualification is what you do when you're getting a new job or position or promotion. Your sponsorship, which you've been hearing about these last 2 days, is what helps get you to the C-suite, but it's your connections and your credibility that's going to get you a board seat. So what defines credibility? I love how Deb Grant this morning was talking about how your sponsor is, it's almost like co-signing. And you know, when you're co-signing for someone else because they're using their credibility. Well, when you're thinking about a board, it's all about your credibility. That is what is going to attract you to get onto a board. So our goal here is how to think about elevating your credibility. But then they say, well, what is that? Well, you know, if you think about credibility, it is a function of three variables: your achievement multiplied by time multiplied by visibility equals your credibility. Your achievements, what have you done that gives you credibility? How much time have you been achieving? And we've been talking about this the last 2 days, how visible have you been in showing your achievements over time? Now, let me tell you why this is something that I hope everybody memorizes, because watch this trick. Let's just say, after everything that you've been learning here these last 2 days and other things that you've been accomplishing, you've been doing some great things and you've been accomplishing all these successes and you've been doing it over time, but you don't declare, or you're not visible, or you're not thinking about how you elevate yourself, and the visibility is zero. No matter how much you're achieving, no matter how long you're doing it, what is anything times zero? Think about that. What is 10,000, 10 million, 10 trillion times zero? It's zero. Which means that in order to build your credibility, you need achievements multiplied by time multiplied by your visibility. So if you've ever wanted to, especially for those of us that love math, wanted to understand mathematically why you have to elevate yourself, why you need to make sure that you're telling your story rather than having your work speak for itself, this, if nothing else, will tell you that if you don't do it, it's as if you did nothing. It's zero. So once we understand that, then it's the strategy of, okay, how do I elevate my credibility? So this is something that I want everyone to make sure that we understand that, because now as we start thinking about how do you get noticed to serve on a potential nonprofit board, and what are the benefits of planning strategically? And I want to emphasize strategically because you're not just joining any board. And you're not just joining a board just because you're passionate about that mission, though that could be a very important reason, but it may not necessarily be the only reason. And so what are the benefits? Well, one, it magnifies your professional development with the possibility that your employer may actually sponsor you to serve on a board. Almost every one of your companies has an external engagement with a variety of different nonprofits. And some of them may actually want you to consider being their ambassador on that board of directors, and it may benefit them. But even if you're joining one, your employer may actually welcome that because it shows not only your ambassadorial commitment to the company, but also it makes you want to succeed. And when there's a saying that I love, that when you succeed, you give back. But when you give back, you succeed. Because as you're giving back, you want to come back to your place of employment and do more because it gives you a chance to give more. So those are just among the benefits. And it expands and increases your external and internal network, especially with higher ranking leaders. How many of you are at a company where you have a policy that you can't speak to the higher up unless you get permission from this person, and then that person, and then that person, and then that person, and then all these permissions to try to get to the really high up? Well, what's the way to work around this? This is the way you work around it. Your nonprofit board service may actually get you higher visibility with the higher ups within your company because they're seeing the work that you're doing outside of the actual operational duties. And so It helps you there. It exposes you to other nonprofit board directors who may serve on other corporate boards or prominent nonprofit boards. And it can lead you for recommendations for future high-profile appointments, whether it's community or civic or other high-ranking opportunities, even promotions within your company, because you're now viewed as someone that has an external brand that is now tied and aligned with your company. And so, again, all these things that help to boost your credibility. And so how do you think strategically about serving on nonprofits? One, you should check with your employer, because they may be open to sponsoring you to serve on a nonprofit where they have an existing relationship. It promotes you, as I mentioned, as an ambassador of your company, because in most nonprofits, when they list their board of directors, what do they list? They list your name, and what's below it? Your company. And so that means that as you're elevating your nonprofit board service, your company is getting the opportunity to elevate its external brand because you are serving on that nonprofit board. And as you move up the corporate ladder, your company may actually want you to move up a parallel ladder in terms of your board service sponsorship. And a good example is if you look at a nonprofit, like let's just say the United Way, or ones that have chapters like the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or American Heart Association, all others that have chapters within the states, but as you're moving up the ladder within your company, they may say, okay, now you're ready to join the state board. Now we're ready to sponsor you for the national board. And I'll talk about give-get in a minute as we start talking about what does that mean when you start to serve on these higher level boards as you're rising up. But that's the one thing to remember, that as you're moving up the ladder, you want to start thinking about what kind of boards are at that level because of the fact that you're thinking strategically about your credibility and thus your nonprofit board service. So those are just among the ways of how do you think strategically on nonprofit boards. And as I mentioned, your employer looks at you as an external ambassador on behalf of your company, and that makes them more likely to want to support. So then the question is that questions to ask when you're planning strategically for board service. So this is something you want to think about if you're being asked to serve on a nonprofit board, or if there's a nonprofit board that you're thinking about joining. These are the questions that you should ask every single time. One, who else is on the board? Today it's actually easier because almost everyone has a LinkedIn account. All you gotta do is go to the board of directors and just go to LinkedIn and you can see who else is on the board and what's their background. But you want to know who else is on the board. That's your first question, even before you get to mission and all that other stuff. Who else is on the board? Because why? Because if you have a board of highly credible, remember I talked about credibility? Highly credible individuals, then you know that joining a board like that is going to help to elevate your credibility. So you want individuals that have high credibility that can help elevate this. Is there a history of that nonprofit attracting highly credible board directors? Because if the answer is yes, then you may want to consider joining that board. And now that you know the formula for credibility, remember, your achievement multiplied by time, multiplied by visibility equals your credibility. And once you understand that, then you can see whether there is a history. And are there any connection between you and any board member or any board member's employer? Is there a vetting process? There are some nonprofits that have a separate nominations committee that go through a whole vetting process because they're trying to vet whether you have the enough credibility to be worthy to serve on that nonprofit board. If you're serving on or planning to serve on multiple boards, are the missions diverse? Are the demographics diverse? Are your board committee assignments different? So if you're on one board and you're on the finance committee, maybe the next board you might be a part of the audit committee, or you might be a part of these other ones. And by the way, these board dynamics like Robert's Rules of Order and all that stuff, I certainly encourage you to, to think about that once you join. But that's not what this session is about. This session is really about how to be strategic about your choice of boards. And then once that happens, there are some great resources that are out there. BoardServe and some other great services that are out there that do a great job teaching you how to navigate being on a board once you get onto a board. But this is, again, is how to be strategic. So I want to show this slide. And this is, again, for many of you, you may be years away from serving on your first corporate board. You've been seeing the slides that we have been doing at Hasera about the fact that only 5% of Latinos serve on Fortune 500 boards, or the fact that 1.2% of Latinas that are on boards. So we know that we're advocating for this, but we know that the pipeline to prepare you down the road for a future corporate board doesn't start 15 years from now when you're already a senior vice president and you haven't thought about your nonprofit board service or your credibility strategy. It starts now in your position now. But this gives you an idea of nonprofits have a history of producing future corporate board candidates. Museum boards. Every city that where all of you are from has a museum. And if I would just go random, I'll just go random. What city are you from, sir? New Orleans? What's the biggest museum here in New Orleans? The World War II Museum. So without even knowing who's on that board of directors, I'll be willing to bet my mortgage that if you go to that board, the website, and look at who's on that board, you will see prominent leaders that are probably prominent to New Orleans that are on that board. What city are you from? New Orleans. Wow, New Orleans in the house. You're in front. Let's get someone from another city other than New Orleans. Any, where? Fayetteville. From? Fayetteville, Arkansas. So Northwest Arkansas. So you got Fayetteville, you got Bentonville, you got Rogers, all that area. And is there a museum that's there? Yeah. Yes, what's the biggest one? Which one? Crystal Bridge. The Crystal Bridge Museum. And how much you want to bet that one of the Waltons are probably on that board? So more than likely, you're going to have some prominent board directors that are there. So museum boards, whether it's local, regional, but these ones are ones that are very attractive. Foundation boards, very popular of attracting those to serve on nonprofits that eventually will get onto later corporate boards later on. Prominent health-related boards, hospital boards, American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, Alzheimer's Association, all these names that you all know. These are not unfamiliar not-for-profit boards. These are ones that you all know. College boards, especially private college boards. And why? Because private colleges function like nonprofits. And so there are a lot of similar dynamics, but if you do get onto a public college board, that's great too. You know, I'm on the Alumni Advisory Council at my alma mater, Ohio State University, and you know, it's a great board. But there's no question that when you look at, in general, private college boards are very attractive for producing future corporate board directors. And again, human services organizations, United Way, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Habitat for Humanity. Again, all these names. Here's the one thing that you want to look for, and this will help you to think about, is this the right board? It should have two components of the nonprofit. And if it doesn't have these two, then for the purposes of your strategy to increase your credibility, you do not want to have a board or join a board that does not have both of these components. Number one, it's well-funded. Number one, well-funded. And number two, widely accepted. Well-funded, widely accepted. You know, you should just memorize that. Well-funded and widely accepted. If you are looking at boards for you to consider serving, it must have both of them. And it can't have just one of them. Because if it's well-funded and widely accepted. And widely accepted is a function of the fact that, for example, in Northwest Arkansas, that may be a widely accepted regional museum. And in that area, it's a widely accepted institution, and therefore that's great. If you're from, let's say, Pittsburgh or Charlotte or any other area that might be, or even a regional city area or an area, as long as that board is widely accepted locally or regionally or nationally, then you want to serve on those kinds of boards. So remember those keywords: well-funded and widely accepted. And so now the fun part, the give-get. Then they say, hey, we want you to join our board, but the give-get is $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. Some are $100,000 a year, not just one, per year, every single year. So the average give-get for most nonprofits, according to Board Assist, is $5,000 is the average. But yeah, if you join a museum or a hospital or another high-profile board, it could start at $25,000 per year. And it might even go as high as $10,000 per year. I think I've heard that if you join the board of directors of the Met in New York City, it's about $500,000 per year, give-get. But if you look who's on the board, you will see how they're able to command that kind of a give-get. But don't let that make you feel like this crowds you out of those opportunities. If anything, if you hear about a board that has a give-get, don't run away from it, run towards it. Why? Because the odds of those individuals that are meeting that give-get, serving on that board, are much higher, and in many cases, they may not necessarily be doing their own give-get. It's just a matter of which company is sponsoring them to serve on that nonprofit board, and then usually it's your employer that actually helps you cover the give-get. So you may be able to leverage your employer to have the in-kind donation count towards the give-get goal, and then know the give-get that you can potentially work through your company, or a combination, because some of your foundations offer a matching gift, like a dollar per dollar matching gift. Whatever you donate, your company matches you. And there are a few of your companies that actually will double match your donation if you volunteer. In other words, do some community volunteering with that nonprofit and serve on the board of directors. If you do both of them, some of your employers will actually give you a double match. So check with your corporate foundations to see what their matching gift policy is, and that's going to give you a better understanding. But once you know what your give-get strategy is, then that gives you an idea which nonprofits. And so, I share this so that while you may, depending on where you are within your company, they may support a certain give-get. As you're rising up the corporate ladder within your company, your give-get that you're able to command goes up. And so understanding that now helps you to think about your strategy. So what do you do before you get onto a nonprofit board? Know the process of getting nominated and identify the board of directors whom you may have a connection. And if you don't have a connection with anyone that's on the board, find a mutual connection. Again, today, sometimes it's as easy as on LinkedIn just to connect with someone and say, hey, you're on the board of directors of this nonprofit. I would love to learn more. I'd love to maybe volunteer and get more involved. And hopefully you all will get to know me and maybe even nominate me to serve on your board if that's the board that you're thinking about joining. Have your give-get strategy ready before you join or begin that journey. If you know that you can command a 5,000 give-get or 2,500 give-get, whatever that might be, or another give-get. Again, 5,000 is the average. There are some that are less than that. It could be 1,000, it could be 500. But understand that some of those bigger nonprofit boards where you may be trying to get around those other highly credible directors may require you to figure out what's your strategy to work with your nonprofits, work with your companies, whether it's through your department or whoever might be involved with external affairs or your foundation that may help you to support your GiveGet on that nonprofit. And as I mentioned before, if your company has a matching gift program, which actually most of your companies do, then use it to magnify your financial GiveGet with that nonprofit. But then what do you do after you get on the nonprofit? This is where the magic happens in terms of elevating your credibility. One is, know what your board service outcome is. How long do you think you're going to serve on that nonprofit? Is it 3 years? Is it 6 years? Some of them will have term limits, which means that if they tell you you've got 6 years before your term is over, then that means you've got 6 years to get to know everyone else that's on your board, which is so important on my second bullet point. Getting to know those board members, especially those who serve on other major prominent nonprofit boards, maybe even some corporate boards. And understanding that strategy, then you'll know who you want to connect with so that by the time your term is done, then you will have accomplished that network that you've created with that nonprofit. Know your philanthropic GiveGet strategy, and whether you're there sponsored by your company or a combination of your own personal philanthropy to help to meet that GiveGet, know that that strategy on how to meet or even exceed that. And so I want to just share this before we open up for questions. But again, when you're planning strategically for a nonprofit board service, it can simultaneously support the nonprofit you're trying to support and the cause, because again, you're spending time and you're also in many cases giving money. Someone asked me, like, do you get paid to do this? The answer is no. It's the reverse. It's the absolute reverse. You're spending time and your money in order to really help forward that cause, but you can see the benefits of this strategy. And then over time, remember that time component, you strengthen your credibility, and it gives you the opportunity to go into higher level, higher profile boards, advisory boards, and eventually, down the road, a corporate board. Now, let me just give you an idea, because I want to give you all a perspective that, that for many of you, you're not yet at that stage where you're thinking about a corporate board, and in many cases, your companies may not even allow it until later on. But just know that the average age to get on your first corporate board is 58. That's the average, The average age of all board directors is 61. But why is it such a high average age? Well, I just shared the quotient why. Time. Your achievement multiplied by time multiplied by credibility multiplied by visibility equals your credibility. And so, but if you take your credibility over time, that equals wisdom. And so once you understand that, then it helps you to start thinking about how you elevate on these boards, but also explains why most board directors are very, very senior in their roles. And so my hope is that this gives you a chance to think about why you may want to consider thinking about your nonprofit boards. And for most of you that did not raise your hands, that you have not yet started serving on a board, my hope is that this will help you to see the opportunities to join a board and then over time start thinking about your credibility growth. Remember, what is credibility? It's your achievements, all the great things that you're doing, multiplied by time, multiplied by your visibility, illuminating what you're doing, equals your credibility. So my hope is, does this all make sense to all of you here to understand why this is so important? Well, this is great. And I recognize for some of you, this may be your first time seeing a presentation like this. And we certainly at HACER want to make sure that we support you as you're thinking about your board service. But hopefully, we'll hear some great things from you in terms of which boards you are going to consider joining. So with that, I got some time for some questions. So let's start with our first questions. And I think we got questions from the virtual audience. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, because every time I see Shanae, I'm like, okay, virtual audience. All right. Yes, we'll start over here.
Thank you so much, Sid, for that overview. My name is Caroline Gomez, and I am a D&I practitioner at Capital One. I'm interested in serving in the board in the future, but obviously, as you just shared, 58 is the typical age. So I'm curious about what the vetting process is in some of the positions that you have, board positions you've been in, and what are they asking of you so that as I'm developing my career and how others are developing their career, what are those accomplishments that we should be trying to get under our belt so that we can serve in future board positions?
So great question. So one of the things that I want to share a big misconception, and that misconception is that you need to be qualified to serve on a nonprofit or a corporate board. The answer is it has nothing to do with your qualifications, because as I shared on my first slide, your qualifications get you a job or a promotion. Your sponsorship gets you into the C-suite, but it's your credibility that gets you on that board seat. Now, what that means is that as you start to position yourself to get noticed, it means that rather than showing them your qualifications, you start showing them your credibility. That this is what I have been doing over all these years. And I love how when Jai was on stage this morning about how you can get other people to talk about your successes, all those kinds of examples elevate your credibility. So what you want to do is for whichever nonprofit that you're thinking about joining, is to start asking yourself, how can I align my credibility to that organization? And when you start showing credibility over time, credibility times time equals wisdom. So remember how I said achievement multiplied by time, multiplied by visibility is credibility? Well, credibility times time equals wisdom. And what boards want is they want your wisdom. And once you show that you can bring great wisdom to that board, then the level of credibility and that level of attractiveness to join that board goes way up. But don't worry about your resume or all that stuff. They don't want that. They want your wisdom. All right, good question. Yes?
All right, I'm going to read a question from our virtual audience. This question is from Gabriel Perez from Best Buy Health. I am lucky to have been nominated to serve on a private choir school board, and it's made me want more. How do you approach these different boards without sponsorship? Do you start the relationship, plant the seed, and maintain communication so that if there are future opportunities, they think of you?
Well, that's a great question, because remember, if you put yourself on the other side of the equation, this nonprofit has to meet a mission. In this case, looks like it's a musical mission, but it might be a human service mission, it might be a health mission, it might be a mission of whatever it is trying to accomplish. And they want to know that you are someone that has the level of credibility, and that may take time if you're not sponsored. So if you're not sponsored, that means that you have to be engaging. They may want you to volunteer. They may want you to attend other major events that they're doing. They may even want you to show a history of donating and contributing to the nonprofit before they start seeing that they may consider you joining that even without that corporate sponsorship that you may get from your own employer. So if it's a strategy like that, that's going to take, again, that amount of time. But if you do that, then you may do that. And then once you get on that board, always let your employer know. In fact, some of your industries actually require you, by the way, to notify your employer, especially if you're in financial services or other related industries or in the accounting and auditing industry, where they may require you to disclose that. So those are things that are very important. But that's a very good question about what happens if you're trying to get on a nonprofit, but you don't have that sponsorship that's behind you. All right. Yes, next question.
Olga Herrera from Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. So as I'm listening to your presentation, I'm really starting to think of what I can do at this stage in my career.
Right.
And I'm wondering if maybe starting off by volunteering at local government committees would be a good strategy to build my way up to eventually, hopefully, some of these larger nonprofit boards.
So the answer is that it's a great start because you may be considering, like, for example, joining a school board. Now, that depends on whether it's an appointment or you have to run for it and you have to go through that process. But you may get an opportunity to get appointed to a board. I was on a community college board actually for many, many years, which was a great opportunity, and again, some powerhouse fellow board members that were on there with me. And so that could be another opportunity. But the key thing is that, as I shared before, about how to know your board service outcome. Meaning that if you know that, let's say you're a director level now, and then you go from director to senior director, then from vice president to senior vice president, by that point, you should be well beyond beyond that board. You should be on something that's much higher because of the fact that internally that your profile has gone up, and you're probably going to command more of a give-get. But even if it's not like a school board, most school boards have foundations. Almost all of them have foundations that they have. And they have a separate board there, and that may be also another way to consider serving on a board that might be education related. But great question. All right, yes.
Hi, my name is Daniel, pardon me, Daniel Perez from Nationwide Insurance. And I've got kind of a silly question.
Oh, every question is a great question.
A lot of people will go and apply for multiple jobs. Applying for multiple boards, is that going to get you a bad reputation?
So the answer is not necessarily, because nonprofits don't disclose who is trying to get onto on their boards. And most of the time, not every time, most of the time, it's not even like an application process. Remember how I said that your qualifications get you a job, your sponsorship gets you into the C-suite, and it's your credibility that gets you on a board seat. So naturally, if you're trying to get on a lot of boards locally where there may be some overlap between some board directors, then yes, some of them might hear that you weren't chosen on this nonprofit, and then the question is why? Because the way your credibility gets you on a board, it could also hurt you if either something happened with your credibility or the credibility of the nonprofit. Remember how I mentioned before that it should be well-funded and widely accepted, which means that if something happens with that nonprofit that impacts the well-funded component to it, guess who they look at first in terms of who they blame? The board of directors. And if you're on that board, your credibility got you on that board, and your credibility will actually make it harder for you to get on another board if that well-funded component to it gets impacted. But what you may want to think about is how to build your credibility so you can get on that first board. Because once you get on that first board, believe it or not, you just become known within that network. And it's almost like that saying, like, if you're good enough for that board, you're good enough for this board. If you're good enough for this board, then you're good enough for that board, because they're seeing that you're someone that's highly credible and therefore would be great to serve on these other boards. But I would pick a board. Are you in Columbus, Ohio? Or are you in another area?
Actually, I'm based out of California.
Okay, good. I was just in Columbus this past week with Nationwide, which is great. And so there, I share that because, if you figure out which board, and I would check with Nationwide and first find out, are there any nonprofits that they are already supporting where you may want to align your time to that nonprofit? Then that way, you're coming in already with the credibility of Nationwide, who's backing you to serve on that board. And in many cases, they already know what the give-get is, and most of the time, they'll either cover it. There are some nonprofits, I will say, that even if you do get corporate backing, may still require you to make some kind of annual give, whatever that amount is. But hopefully, when you do that, it'll help you to look up at these other opportunities. Great. No problem. Any other questions? All right. Was this helpful? By the way, how many of you have heard, this is your first time ever hearing a presentation about nonprofit board service? Look at that. That's many of you. And this is why we wanted to make sure that you all understand how this not only helps think about your credibility, but also how it actually can help elevate your service internally. And our goal at HACER is for all of you to think about your nonprofit board service. And as your credibility starts going up, then of course our job, as I shared with you yesterday, how we're engaged with all these corporate CEOs about having Latinos on their corporate boards, the first thing they look for is give me candidates that are credible. Which means that if we help you elevate your credibility, it helps us to help you as we start to significantly increase the number of Latinos that are serving on not only on corporate boards, but also on prominent nonprofit boards. But don't feel that just because you're not yet an executive vice president that you can't serve on these nonprofit boards. You can do this right now. Start locally, start regionally. Work with your companies to see how they can either help align you. That's the easy way. But you may be passionate about a particular nonprofit that can also help expand your credibility. Remember, two things: well-funded and widely accepted. And remember that they don't want your qualifications. They want your credibility. Your credibility is your achievement multiplied by time, multiplied by visibility equals credibility. And your credibility over time equals wisdom, and that's what they want on that nonprofit board. All right? Was that helpful, everybody? Excellent. Good, good.
Lord have mercy on me. Perdóname. Disco de oro en México. Órale. Y sin duda ya tú sabes que órale. Bailar con proyecto. Otra vez. Si el tema no te gusta.
Thanks again, Sid. Please welcome to the stage founder and CEO at CEO Wellness Club, Candy Calderon.
Wow. Proyecto Uno. I'm dating myself. Like, who remembers Proyecto Uno? Okay, you're my people. I am so thrilled and so honored